The dog's naked skin told a story John had never seen. 12 years. 12 years of thick German shepherd fur hiding what now lay exposed under the harsh Texas sun, a faded military tattoo, numbers burned into flesh, half covered by fresh razor cuts, still weeping blood. K9 4721 J sock. John's hands trembled as he wrapped his jacket around Max's shivering body. His daughter sobbed beside him, wrists raw from rope burns. The laughter of the boys who'd done this still echoed down the empty road. But John wasn't hearing them anymore. He was reading the numbers again. Joint Special Operations Command. The kind of designation that didn't end up on random shelter dogs. The kind that meant Max wasn't just a companion. Max was a ghost. On the ground, half buried in dust, a dog tag John had never seen before. He picked it up, turned it over, and everything he thought he knew shattered. 150 words. Before we continue, please leave a like and let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. 6 hours earlier, the morning had started with scrambled eggs and silence, the comfortable kind that came from years of knowing when words weren't needed. John scraped the skillet clean, dividing the last of the cheese between Emily's plate and Max's bowl. The kitchen smelled like Maxwell House and worn linoleum, sunlight catching dust motes that danced above the table. Max sat beside Emily's chair, his graying muzzle resting on her knee. Patient, always patient. At 12 years old, his dark fur had turned silver around the eyes, his gait slower from hips that ached on cold mornings. But his eyes, those deep brown eyes, still held the alertness of a younger dog. Emily slipped him a piece of bacon when she thought John wasn't looking. John pretended not to see, let her have this small rebellion. On the counter, an envelope glared at him. Viet bill, $340, past due stamped in unforgiving red. John's VA check covered rent and food, barely. The truck's transmission was shot, so walking was the only option now. His right leg dragged when he was tired, the old injury from Helmand Province making itself known with each step. But they managed. They always managed. "Ready, baby?" John asked, his voice rough from disuse. Emily nodded, shouldering her backpack. She was 10 now, too old for hand-holding, but she reached for his hand anyway as they stepped onto the porch. The September heat hit them immediately. Texas didn't believe in gentle autumns. Max followed, his nails clicking on the wooden steps, moving with the careful dignity of age. The walk to town was 1.2 miles. John counted steps to distract from the pain in his leg. Emily chattered about school, something about her teacher, Mrs. Chen's new puppy, and John listened with the focused attention he'd once reserved for mission briefings. Every word mattered when you only had one person left in the world who called you Dad. Max paused halfway down Oakwood Road, his nose lifting to the wind, his ears swiveled forward. Something wasn't right. John's hand found Emily's shoulder. Old instincts never died, even when you were just walking to the pharmacy for pain medication you couldn't afford. "Keep walking," he murmured. The pharmacy visit was quick. Mrs. Rosa, the pharmacist, was 62 with kind eyes and a smoker's rasp. She counted John's exact change for the VA prescription, then quietly added a free bottle of Advil. "For the leg, John." He nodded. Didn't say thank you, pride wouldn't allow it, but his eyes said what his mouth couldn't. Emily pointed at the dog biscuits near the register. "Dad, can Max have the treat $4.99? Might as well have been $4.99. "Not this week, baby." She didn't cry. She'd learned not to. The walk home took them through the old park-rusted swings and a basketball court with more cracks than concrete, a shortcut that saved John's leg from another quarter-mile of punishment. Cicadas buzzed in the heat, the sound almost hypnotic. Then engines. 3 trucks, lifted, chrome gleaming. The kind of vehicles that cost more than John made in a year. Max's ears pinned back. He moved in front of Emily without being told. 70 pounds of aging muscle placing itself between threat and child. The trucks formed a loose semicircle, blocking the path. 6 young men spilled out, early 20s, designer sunglasses, sneakers that cost more than John's monthly groceries. The leader tall, smirking. Entitled John recognized him. Cody Brennan, sheriff's son. The kind of boy who'd never heard no in his life. "Excuse us," John said. Level voice. No fear. No aggression. Just a man asking to pass. Cody's eyes landed on Max. "That's an ugly-ass dog. Old man. Looks half dead." Max's chest rumbled, not quite a growl, more a vibration of warning. John's hand settled on the dog's head, steady, calm. "We don't want trouble," John said quietly. Cody's friend pulled out a phone, already filming. "Yo, this is gonna go viral." John guided Emily around them. Max limped but stayed between the men and the girl, dignified even in the face of mockery. Their laughter followed all the way down the road. Emily looked back, her face flushed with shame. John didn't. His jaw was tight, hands clenched. But he kept walking. Some men walk away because they're afraid. John walked away because he'd already fought enough wars. Behind them, engines revved, and the 3 trucks began to follow. Plus 100 words. The sheriff's office smelled like old coffee and leather. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. John stood at the counter, Emily beside him, clutching a manila folder that held their truth. Sheriff Brennan didn't stand when they entered. 55 years old, gut hanging over his belt, badge polished to an aggressive shine. He leaned back in his chair, fingers laced over his stomach, and smiled. "What can I do for you, John?" John placed the folder on the desk. Inside, printed screenshots from the live stream. Max's veterinary report detailing the infections, the cuts, the accelerated cancer timeline, everything documented, everything true. "I'm filing a report, assault, animal cruelty, destruction of property." Brennan flipped through the pages with theatrical disinterest. Paused at one screenshot, his son's face clearly visible, holding electric clippers, grinning at the camera. "I don't see any evidence here. Just an old dog that got a bad haircut." John's voice stayed level. "There's video. Your son posted it online. My son was home all day Saturday." Brennan closed the folder, pushed it back across the desk. "You calling him a liar?" Emily's hand found John's. He squeezed gently. "I have witnesses. I have medical documentation. You have nothing." Brennan stood now, all 6 feet of him designed to intimidate. "You know what I think. John, I think you're a bitter old man looking for attention. Your dog's sick. That's sad, but it ain't my problem." The wall was there, impenetrable, smiling. Brennan leaned forward, voice dropping to something almost kind. "You seem like a smart man, war hero and all. Why don't you just let this go? Things could get complicated for you and your girl." John felt Emily tense beside him. He picked up the folder. "I'll be back with a lawyer." Brennan's laugh followed them out. "Good luck finding one in this town." The lawyer's office was small, tucked above the hardware store. Attorney Mills was 48 with tired eyes and a handshake that apologized before his mouth did. "John, I want to help. I do." He set down the folder without reading it. "But Sheriff Brennan, he owns half this town. The other half owes him favors. So justice doesn't matter." Mills rubbed his face. "I have a daughter in college. Tuition's due in 3 weeks. I can't afford to make enemies." John stood. No argument, no pleading, just a nod. "I understand." He left the business card on the desk. Mrs. Rosa looked uncomfortable when John entered the pharmacy on Wednesday. She rang up his prescription without meeting his eyes, her usual warmth replaced by something that looked like fear. "John," she whispered, glancing toward the back office. "People are saying you're causing trouble. I'm asking for what's right. My husband said—" She swallowed. "Maybe you should shop elsewhere." The free Advil days were over. John paid exact change and left. Thursday brought a call from Emily's school. She'd gotten into a fight, black eye already forming when John arrived at the principal's office. Another student said her dog deserved it. Principal Hayes explained, voice flat with practiced neutrality. Emily responded physically. I didn't start it, Dad, Emily said, defiant despite the tears tracking through the bruise. John looked at the principal. And the other child? Suspended for 1 day. Emily gets 3. Because she defended herself. Because she needs to learn there are consequences. John took Emily's hand. She already knows about consequences. She watched 6 men assault her dog while I stood there and did nothing. They walked out together. That night, John sat at the kitchen table surrounded by bills, calculator, pen. The math didn't care about fairness. Vet bill, $340, new antibiotics for Max. $127, rent, due in 12 days. Truck repair, impossible. His truck title sat in his hand. Paid off 3 years ago. Worth maybe $200 if he was lucky. Dad. Emily stood in the doorway, wearing her pajamas with the faded unicorns. Why don't we just move somewhere else? John looked at his daughter, 10 years old and already learning that the world crushes people who can't fight back. Because running away teaches you that dignity is optional. He set down the title. And in this house, it never will be. But nobody's listening. Then I'll make them listen. Saturday morning arrived cold, the first hint of autumn bleeding into September's heat. John woke at 5, made coffee, and found cardboard in the garage. Black marker. Steady hand. Justice for Max K9 veteran assaulted 9/23. Emily watched from the doorway as he worked. Dad, what are you doing? What I should have done from the start, telling the truth. He walked to his truck, placed the for sale sign in the window, then picked up the cardboard sign, tested its weight. Max followed him down the porch steps, moving slower now. Bandages still visible under the patchy fur. But his head was high, always high. They walked to the courthouse together. 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning, the square empty except for pigeons and possibility. John stood on the bottom step. Max sat beside him. The first person appeared at 7:30, a woman in running clothes, ponytail swinging. She slowed when she saw them. Read the sign. Looked at Max's naked, scarred skin. Her name was Amanda, 52, high school teacher, mother of 3. Her eyes welled up. She said nothing, but she nodded at John, then kept walking. John didn't move. The sun climbed higher. His leg ached. Max leaned against him, warm and trusting. This was day 1. By noon, 17 people had passed. 16 looked away, but 1 had nodded, and 1 was enough to start. John shifted his weight, adjusted his grip on the sign. Across the street, a black pickup truck pulled up to the curb and idled. Cody Brennan sat in the driver's seat, sunglasses on, phone raised. Recording. Plus 900 words. Day 8 began the same way: courthouse steps, cardboard sign, Max sitting sentinel beside him. The October sun was gentler now, the heat less punishing. John's thermos held gas station coffee, bitter and lukewarm. His stomach had stopped growling around day 5. You learned to ignore hunger if you'd been hungry enough times before. Across the street, Millie's diner hummed with Sunday morning business. Families in church clothes, retirees nursing coffee and gossip. John watched them through the windows, a world he no longer belonged to. At 11:30, the bell above the diner door jingled. Dolores emerged carrying a thermos and a paper bag. 58 years old, waitress for 3 decades, voice roughened by cigarettes and hard living. She crossed the street without hesitation, her orthopedic shoes squeaking against asphalt. You look like you could use this. She set the thermos down beside him. Steam rose when she unscrewed the cap. Real coffee, dark and rich, the smell alone worth more than the gas station swill. The paper bag crinkled as she placed it on the step. Inside, a roast beef sandwich on sourdough, chips, a pickle spear. John's mouth watered involuntarily. I can't pay. Didn't ask you to. Dolores knelt, her knees popping, and extended her hand to Max. He sniffed cautiously, then allowed her fingers to scratch behind his ear. Gentle. Practiced. She knew dogs. "My son was a Marine," she said quietly. Eyes on Max's scarred skin. Came back different. "You got that same look." John didn't know what to say. Didn't trust his voice. "Some battles don't end when you come home." She stood, joints protesting. "You need more. You let me know. And I mean that." She walked back to the diner before John could form words. Through the window, he saw her return to the counter, pouring coffee for a customer like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just cracked his armor with simple kindness. The sandwich had an extra piece of turkey tucked inside for Max. John fed it to him piece by piece, watching his old friend chew with the care of a dog whose mouth hurt. But Max's tail thumped against the concrete. Slow, steady, grateful. Inside the diner, people watched. Some turned away, but some kept watching. Day 10 brought wind sharp and October cold. John had learned to dress in layers now, to bring a blanket for Max. The courthouse steps had become familiar as his own porch. The sound came first squeaking wheels, metal on metal, rhythmic and determined. Harold Hal Patterson rolled up in his wheelchair. Vietnam veteran cap perched on his silver head. 72 years old. Missing both legs below the knee. Purple Heart and Bronze Star medals pinned to his jacket. He smelled like cigarettes and Old Spice. He studied the sign for a full minute before speaking. "K9, huh?" His voice carried the gravel of 1,000 shouted orders. "Which unit?" "JSOC," John said simply. Hal's eyebrows rose. "Joint Special Operations doesn't retire dogs to civilians unless..." His eyes narrowed, reassessing. "You were Delta." John didn't confirm. Didn't deny. Some things didn't need words. Hal lit a cigarette, offered one to John. John shook his head. "I know a guy," Hal said, smoke curling from his nostrils. "Investigative reporter, Austin Chronicle. Marcus Webb. Loves stories about vets getting screwed by the system." He pulled a business card from his wallet. Handed it over. The edges were worn, like Hal had been carrying it for exactly this moment. "He might not help," Hal continued, "but he'll listen. Which is more than most." John pocketed the card. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." Hal's wheelchair squeaked as he positioned himself beside the steps, looking out at the square like a general surveying a battlefield. "Just don't give up. We didn't survive our wars to watch punks win this one." They sat in silence for 20 minutes. 2 old soldiers, 1 old dog, the world moving around them while they held their ground. When Hal finally rolled away, Max watched him go, ears forward, head tilted, recognition between warriors who'd both given pieces of themselves to something larger. John looked at the business card. White, simple, Marcus Webb, senior investigator. He didn't call. Not yet. But he kept it. Day 16 arrived with Emily running up the courthouse steps after school, backpack jangling with pins and keychains. Her face was flushed, eyes bright with something John hadn't seen in days. Hope. "Dad, look!" She dumped the contents of her bag onto the step. 23 handmade cards tumbled out, construction paper in every color, glitter and crayon and marker declaring, "Get well, Max, and we love you. Max, and you're a hero." "Mrs. Chen let us make them in class," Emily explained, breathless. "And she signed one. And so did Tommy and Sarah and Miguel. Their parents don't know, but they did it anyway." John's throat tightened as he read each one. Childish handwriting, stick figures of dogs, hearts and stars, and one ambitious drawing of Max wearing a cape. Emily carefully taped them to the courthouse wall behind them, creating a patchwork shrine of elementary school affection. Max watched, tail wagging, tongue lolling in what might have been a smile. "Dad, kids at school say you're weird," Emily said, still arranging cards. "They say we should just forget it." She paused, looked at him. "Am I weird too?" John set down his sign, knelt, despite his protesting leg, brought himself to her eye level. Baby, weird just means different, and different is how things change. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. You're not weird, you're brave. That night, Max slept surrounded by crayon drawings. Emily fell asleep on the floor beside his bed, hand resting on his paw. John covered her with a blanket, then stood at the window watching the street. Something waited on the porch. A 40-pound bag of dog food. Premium brand? No note? No name. John checked it for tampering old habits from a different war. Clean. Safe. Given freely. He brought it inside, poured some into Max's bowl. The sound of kibble hitting metal felt like music. Outside, headlights approached. Cody's truck. 4th time this week, slowing as it passed. But this time, a second vehicle followed. A black sedan. Government plates. Plus 950 words. Day 17 arrived with unexpected sunshine and the click of a camera. John looked up from his courthouse vigil to find a man in his 40s crouching beside Max. Digital camera raised. Jeans worn at the knees. Press badge clipped to his belt. A leather messenger bag slung across his chest like armor. John Carter. The man lowered his camera. Marcus Webb. Austin Chronicle. Hal Patterson called me. Webb knelt to Max, first journalist instinct recognizing where the real story lived. He extended his hand slowly, letting Max sniff, reading the dog's body language with the care of someone who understood trauma. Max tilted his head, curious, allowed the touch. Can I hear what happened? Webb pulled out a recording device, set it on the step between them. From the beginning. John told it plain, no embellishment. Just facts, the walk home, the ambush, the shaving, the cuts, the sheriff's refusal. His voice stayed level, emotionless, the way he'd once delivered mission debriefs. But his hand never left Max's head. Webb took notes, asked for the screenshots, studied them with the intensity of someone who'd built a career on finding truth in places people tried to hide it. Then he saw the tattoo. Max's fur had grown back in patches, but the numbers were still visible on his shoulder, faded ink against pink scar tissue. Wait. Webb pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen. K94721. That's military designation. He accessed a database, something through VA contacts. Credentials John didn't question. The color drained from Webb's face. John, do you know who this dog is? He's Max. My dog. No. Webb turned the phone around. An archived news article. 10 years old. Embassy. Bombing hero canine survives. Saves senator. The photo showed a younger Max. Tactical vest gleaming. Standing beside soldiers in front of the American embassy in Kabul. Alert. Proud. Whole. Max was part of the rapid response team during the 2015 embassy bombing, Webb said quietly. He detected the secondary device, saved 47 people, including Senator Thomas Richards, now Governor Richards. John's hand stilled on Max's head. The records say he was retired with honors, but... Webb scrolled further. Transferred to private care. Medical retirement due to PTSD and physical injuries. That was me, John said. Different mission. Year later, he saved my life during an extraction gone wrong. When I medically retired, I requested him. Nobody cared about a broken dog and a broken soldier. Webb's expression shifted from journalist to something more human. This is bigger than local corruption. John, this is a war hero being attacked by the people he protected. He photographed everything. Max's scars, the sign, John's weathered face, the crayon cards still taped to the courthouse wall. Give me 1 week, Webb said, packing his equipment. I'm going to make some calls. Governor's office, state investigators, national networks. I don't want attention, John said. I want accountability. Sometimes you need one to get the other. Webb paused at the bottom step. You're doing the right thing. Keep standing. The black sedan from 3 days ago reappeared as Webb drove away. This time, it parked. Day 20 arrived like a gift-crisp October air, golden sun, and Max with energy John hadn't seen in weeks. The antibiotics had finally won. The infection was clearing. Max ate his entire breakfast, licked the bowl, looked at John with eyes that said, "Outside. Please." "Dad, can we take him to the park?" Emily asked, already putting on her shoes. "Please." John hesitated. The park meant exposure, meant risk. But Max's tail was wagging. "Yeah," John said. "Let's go." The walk felt different. Max trotted, not ran, but actually trotted with something resembling his old gait. Head up, nose working, claiming space he'd been robbed of. The park was alive with October leaves turning gold. Families enjoying the weekend warmth, the sound of children's laughter mixing with the creak of rusty swings. Emily found a tennis ball someone had left behind. "Can I?" John nodded. She threw it not far, maybe 20 feet. Max watched it arc through the air, hesitated. Then something ancient kicked in. He ran, grabbed the ball, brought it back. Emily squealed. Again. John's eyes burned. He wouldn't cry, but it was close. "Good boy. Max, good boy." They played for 20 minutes. Max's tongue lolled, his breathing heavy but joyful. The patchy fur, the scars, the visible bones, none of it mattered. For this moment, he was just a dog. Happy, loved, whole. A little boy toddled over, maybe 5 years old, cheeks sticky with popsicle. "Doggy." His mother started to pull him back, face uncertain. "It's okay," John said. "He's gentle." Max sat without being told. Let the boy's small hands pat his head, pull his ears, giggle at the wet nose that sniffed his face. The mother met John's eyes, mid-30s, tired, kind. "I saw you," she said quietly. "At the courthouse." John waited. "I'm sorry for what happened." She didn't say more, didn't need to, but she didn't look away either. When they finally left, Emily lay on the grass, Max beside her, his head resting on her stomach. John sat nearby, legs stretched out, watching clouds drift. "Dad, he's going to be okay, right?" The question every parent dreads when you have to choose between truth and hope. "I don't know, baby." John's hand found hers. "But today, he's okay, and that's enough." They watched the sky together. For 20 perfect minutes, the world was simple. Day 23 began before dawn. John arrived at his usual spot, 6:45 a.m. October cold biting through his jacket, breath visible in the air. Someone had left a folding chair. Camping style. Cushioned seat. Still in good condition. A note tucked into the fabric. For the vigil. A friend. John set it up. Sat for the first time in 23 days. His legs sang with relief. Max curled at his feet, sighing contentment. 7:30 a.m. Dolores crossed the street with coffee. Their routine now. 8:00 a.m. Hal rolled past, nodded, kept moving. Brothers in arms. 8:15 a.m. Amanda, the teacher who'd first nodded, stopped, placed a bouquet of wildflowers beside the sign. For Max, she smiled, actually smiled, left without waiting for thanks. By 9:00 a.m., 3 bouquets surrounded them, 2 stuffed animals, a teddy bear, and a dog, both worn from a child's love, and a hand-drawn picture of Max with wings. John felt it in his bones the tide was turning. He didn't know how he knew, but he did. Across the street, a man in a suit 50s, official bearing, stepped out of the black sedan that had been watching for days. He crossed the square, stopped in front of John. "Mr. Carter, my name is Agent Morrison, FBI." He opened his badge. "We need to talk about your dog." Behind him, 3 more vehicles pulled up. Not local police. Federal. +1, 100 words. Agent Morrison didn't small talk. He studied Max with the clinical assessment of someone trained to see what others missed. The tattoo on your dog matches a canine reported as retired through proper channels 10 years ago, he said. But certain parties want verification that this is, in fact, the same animal. There are implications if it is. It's him, John said simply. We'll need veterinary records, DNA confirmation if possible. Morrison handed John a card. Governor Richard's office has been making inquiries. This needs to be documented properly. He left as efficiently as he'd arrived. John looked at the card, then at Max, who'd slept through the entire exchange. Some wars, it seemed, never really ended. Day 24 brought Marcus Webb's article. John didn't see it until Hal rolled up with a printed copy, still warm from the library printer. Front page, regional section. Above the fold, war hero. Canine attacked in small town. Owner seeks justice against sheriff's son. The photo was perfect. Max sitting beside the courthouse sign, scars visible, dignity intact. John's weathered face in profile, hand on Max's head, the crayon cards visible behind them like testimony from those too young to lie. Weber quoted you, Hal said. And he didn't pull punches. John read his own words. I'm not asking for revenge, just acknowledgement that what happened was wrong. The sheriff's response. No comment at this time, but the article included everything else: the live stream evidence, the veterinary reports, Max's military history, the systematic refusal of local authorities to investigate. By noon, John's old flip phone had 14 missed calls. He answered none of them. By evening, the town's Facebook groups erupted. John didn't have Facebook, but Emily showed him on the library computer after school. Half the comments, finally someone's standing up to Brennan. The other half, he's making our town look bad. Why won't he just move on? Day 25, both front tires on John's truck slashed. Clean cuts. Professional. Day 26, spray paint on his porch. Red letters. Liar. Day 27. Emily followed home from school by Cody's truck, crawling along 20 feet behind her until she reached their yard. John called the principal, got voicemail, left a message that went unreturned. He didn't stop the vigil, but he started bringing Emily with him, safer to keep her close. Day 28, 3:00 a.m. John woke to the sound of retching. Max stood in the hallway, legs trembling, vomit pooling on the hardwood, blood-tinged, dark. No! 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 John was on the floor instantly, hands hovering, afraid to touch, afraid not to. Emily, wake up. Call Doc Stevens. Max's legs gave out. He collapsed onto his side, whimpering soft, continuous, a sound John had never heard him make. Emily appeared in her doorway, saw Max, and her face went white. Is he dying? No. John's voice was steel. Not today. Call the doctor. Now. Doc Stevens arrived at 4:00 a.m. in flannel pajamas and a jacket thrown over them. His examination was gentle but thorough, fingers pressing, listening, checking pupils. The cancer's spreading faster than I thought, he said quietly. The stress, the attack, the recovery, everything, it's accelerated the progression. He prepared a syringe. This will help with the pain, but John... The pause said everything. You need to think about quality of life. He's suffering. Emily's voice cracked. Dad, please don't let him go. Max's eyes found John's. Cloudy now. Cataracts forming, but still trusting. Still waiting for John to make it okay. Doc, give him the strongest pain medication you have. John's hand settled on Max's chest. feeling the irregular heartbeat beneath ribs that showed too clearly. "We're not done fighting yet." The injection worked quickly. Max's breathing eased, his body relaxing into the pain-free haze. He rested his head on John's lap and slept. Day 28 and 29 blurred together. John didn't go to the courthouse, stayed home, Max on the couch against house rules. But rules meant nothing now. They took shifts watching him breathe. Emily read aloud from Where the Red Fern Grows, crying through the passages about old Dan and little Anne. John just sat, hand on Max's side, counting each rise and fall of his ribs. On the night of day 29, John stood on the porch alone. Emily asleep. Max sleeping under the influence of morphine that made the world soft and bearable. He pulled out his phone. Marcus Webb's number saved. Thumb hovering over the call button. Almost pressed it. Almost said, "I'm done. It's not worth this." From inside a bark. Weak, but a bark. John went in. Max stood at the door, wanting out. Bathroom. The basic dignity of a dog who'd held his bladder rather than soil the house. John helped him down the steps, supported his weight as Max did his business under the stars. Then Max leaned against John's leg. A moment. Just them. Old soldier. Old dog. Still standing. "Okay, buddy," John whispered. "Okay, we keep going." Day 30, 11:00 p.m. John had dozed off in his chair, exhaustion finally claiming him. Emily asleep in her room, Max on his bed, medicated and peaceful. The gate creaked. Max's growl pulled John from sleep low. Warning. The sound of a dog who knew danger even through pharmaceutical fog. 3 figures in the backyard, hoodies, masks. One carried a catch pole, the kind animal control used. They were after Max. John didn't shout, didn't warn. Muscle memory activated. 20 years of Delta Force training compressed into 3 seconds of movement. He swept the first one's legs. The figure hit the ground hard, air leaving lungs in a whoosh. Disarmed the second catchpole, clattering across concrete. The third ran. John pinned the first, yanked the mask off. Cody's friend, 20 years old, terrified. "We were just gonna scare you. Man," Cody said, "leave." John's voice was Delta Force again, command, not request. "Now. And tell Cody if he comes near my family again. I won't be merciful next time." They scrambled away like roaches when the light hits. John's hands shook. First time in years. Adrenaline crash hitting hard. Max stood beside him, fur raised, protective despite everything. Emily at the window, pale, afraid. John realized this was escalating. And he was done playing defense. He called Marcus Webb. "I need you to send that article to the governor's office directly. And every state investigator you know." "John, are you? It's time to end this." He hung up. Across the street, headlights flared. The black sedan, watching, always watching. Plus 1,000 words. Day 31 arrived with silence. John stood at his courthouse post, 6:45 a.m. October cold cutting through his jacket, breath ghosting in the pre-dawn air. Max leaned against his leg, heavier now, needing the support. The street was empty, eerily so. No Dolores crossing with coffee. No Hal rolling past with his morning nod. No flowers left overnight. No stuffed animals. No hand-drawn pictures. Just John, Max, and the weathered sign with ink fading from 23 days of sun and rain. "Maybe they're right," John said quietly, words meant for Max alone. "Maybe I should stop." Max looked up, eyes still trusting despite the cloudiness creeping in. "What am I doing, boy? What are we doing?" The wind offered no answer. At 9:00 a.m., a black SUV pulled up. Government plates. Texas Rangers insignia on the door. John tensed. A woman stepped out 40s, professional suit, badge clipped to her belt. She approached with the measured confidence of someone who didn't need to prove authority. "Mr. Carter, I'm Lieutenant Sarah Hayes, Texas Rangers." She extended her hand. "I read the article. I'd like to hear your story." John's throat tightened. "I've told it a dozen times." "Tell it once more." Her voice was firm, but not unkind. "For the record. For the..." The coffee shop smelled like burnt espresso and cleaning solution. Hayes chose a booth in the back, away from curious ears. She placed a digital recorder on the table between them, clicked it on. "From the beginning, please." John recounted everything: the attack, the sheriff's refusal, the escalating threats, the attempted kidnapping. He kept his voice level, factual, the way he'd been trained to deliver mission reports. Hayes took notes in a leather-bound notebook, pen clicking occasionally. "The kidnapping attempt, did you report it? To who?" John met her eyes. "The sheriff." Hayes didn't smile, but something hardened in her expression. Recognition of a system that had failed. "Mr. Carter, you're not the first complaint we've had about Sheriff Brennan's department." She closed her notebook. "But you're the first with documented evidence and a story the media can't ignore." She leaned forward. "I'm opening an official investigation. It'll take time. We have to build a case properly. But I promise you, we will pursue this." "Ma'am, I don't care about the sheriff." John's hand found Max's head under the table. "I just want my daughter safe. And I want people to know what Max is. He's not just a dog. He's a soldier." Hayes looked at Max sleeping now, muzzle resting on John's boot, trusting enough to rest in unfamiliar places. "I know." Her voice softened. "My brother was a K-9 handler in Iraq. He'd have done the same thing you're doing." A pause, heavy with things unsaid. "He didn't make it home." John nodded, understanding passing between two people who'd both lost something to war. Hayes gathered her things. "I need you to stop the vigil for a few days. Let us work. Stay home. Keep Emily safe." "That's giving up." "No." Hayes stood. "That's trusting the system might actually work this time." John wanted to argue, wanted to refuse, but he was tired. So tired. "How long?" "Give me 5 days. If you haven't heard from me by then, go back to your courthouse steps." She handed him her card. "But I think you will." 5 days felt like 5 years. Day 32, no news. Day 33, silence. Day 34, nothing. Day 35 arrived like a funeral. Max wouldn't eat, barely drank. The morphine kept the pain manageable. But John saw what was underneath a body shutting down, a clock running out. Doc Stevens came by on day 34 evening, examined Max with the gentleness of someone delivering bad news. "John, I don't think he has much time. Days. Maybe a week." "The treatment." "There is no treatment. Not anymore." Doc's eyes were kind, sad. "The cancer's in his lungs now, his liver. It's everywhere." That night, day 35, 8:00 p.m. John sat in his living room with the TV turned off hours ago. Static silence. Emily hummed softly from her room, trying to comfort herself with sound. Max lay on his bed, breathing labored even with medication. Each inhale a struggle. Each exhale a small victory. Emily appeared in the doorway, eyes red from crying she thought John didn't hear. "Dad, if Max dies before they catch the bad guys..." Her voice cracked. "Does that mean we lost?" John had no answer. The question sat between them like a third presence. He opened his arms. She ran to him, 10 years old and still small enough to fit against his chest. For the first time since this started, since the attack, the vigil, the threats, all of it. John cried, not loud, not dramatic, just silent tears tracking down weathered cheeks while his daughter held him and his dog fought to breathe. "I don't know, baby," he whispered into her hair. I don't know. Max, with effort that must have cost everything, stood, walked to them on legs that trembled, laid his graying head on John's knee. A gesture, I'm still here. We're not done. John's hand found Max's ear, rubbed the soft fur there. Okay, buddy, okay. Outside, a car door slammed. Footsteps on the porch. A knock. John checked his watch, 8:47 p.m. Too late for visitors. He went to the door, peered through the peephole. Lieutenant Hayes stood on his porch, and she was smiling. 950 words. The phone rang at 7:15 a.m. John had been awake since 5, sitting in the kitchen darkness, watching the clock, waiting for nothing and everything. Max slept in the living room, morphine-heavy, his breathing audible even through walls. The old rotary-style ring cut through the silence like a blade. John's hand shook as he answered. Mr. Carter, it's Lieutenant Hayes. Her voice carried something John hadn't heard in 36 days, victory. We have them. The world tilted. We arrested Cody Brennan and 2 accomplices last night. Multiple charges: animal cruelty, assault, conspiracy, obstruction of justice. We found deleted videos on Cody's phone. Full confessions from the others once they realized they were facing felony charges. John's legs gave out. He sat heavily in the kitchen chair. Sheriff Brennan has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation into corruption charges. The DA is reviewing everything. It's over. It's over. Hayes paused. You did this, Mr. Carter, by not giving up, by standing there every single day until someone who mattered finally looked. John couldn't speak, just pressed the phone to his ear and breathed. There's something else. Hayes continued. Governor Richards called my office directly. He wants to meet Max. Tomorrow, if you're willing. The governor. He never forgot. He's been looking for Max for 10 years. After John hung up, he sat in the kitchen as sunrise painted the walls gold. Emily appeared in her pajamas, saw his face, and knew. They caught them. They caught them. She launched herself into his arms. They cried together. Relief, exhaustion, victory that felt too big to hold. From the living room, a single bark. Weak, but joyful. Max knew too. Day 37 arrived with September warmth and September light, the kind that made everything look possible. John's front yard had been transformed overnight. Someone, maybe several someones, had mowed the grass, pulled weeds, swept the porch. Anonymous kindness, offered now that it was safe to be kind. At 2:00 p.m., 3 black SUVs pulled up. Security detail emerged, first Secret Service, professional and efficient. They scanned the property, spoke into earpieces, nodded. Then Governor Thomas Richards stepped out. 62 years old, gray hair, kind eyes that had seen too much. He wore slacks and a button-down. Not a suit. This wasn't official business. This was personal. He saw Max on the porch and stopped walking. His hand went to his mouth. My God, he whispered. It's really him. Max watched from his spot on the old quilt, head tilted, confused by the attention. Too tired to stand, but his tail moved slow, uncertain recognition of something familiar. Richards approached like someone approaching a miracle. Slow, reverent. He knelt on the porch steps, suit pants in the dirt, not caring about anything except the dog in front of him. Hey, hero, his voice cracked. Do you remember me? Max sniffed the extended hand. Something clicked a scent, a voice frequency, a memory buried under 10 years of different lives. His tail wagged. Genuine now. He licked Richard's hand once. The governor cried. John stood back, giving them space, watching a reunion 10 years overdue. Kabul, 2015. Richard said, looking up at John while keeping one hand on Max. I was a senator on a diplomatic mission, a car bomb secondary device hidden in the compound. Max detected it 30 seconds before detonation. He looked back at Max, fingers gentle on the scarred fur. He alerted. They cleared the building. 47 people lived because of him. I was one of them. Richards wiped his eyes, not ashamed of the tears. I looked for him after. They told me he'd been retired to a facility. I thought he was living like a king somewhere, protected, honored, cared for. His gaze swept John's modest house, the patchy yard, the worn furniture visible through the screen door. You've taken care of him. He took care of us first, John said quietly. Different mission. Year later, he saved my life during an extraction. When I medically retired, I requested him. Nobody cared about a broken dog and a broken soldier finding each other. Richard stood, extended his hand. I'm going to make this right. Medical care for Max, whatever he needs, for the rest of his life. And for you and Emily Scholarship Fund, VA benefits review, housing assistance if you want it. John started to refuse, pride demanding he say no. Not charity, Richard said firmly. Debt repayment. Max earned this. So did you. Media had gathered at a respectful distance, cameras, reporters, but kept back by security. Richards gestured them forward. Is it okay? He asked John. The world should see him, should know what he is. John nodded. They brought out a metal Texas Medal of Valor, specially commissioned. Richards knelt again, placed it around Max's neck with the solemnity of a military decoration ceremony. Cameras clicked, flashed, captured the moment for history. Max sat through it with patient dignity, like he'd done this before, because he had. Emily buried her face in Max's fur, tears soaking into the patchy coat. You're a hero, Max, she whispered. Everyone knows now. Max's tail thumped. He didn't understand medals or governors or cameras, but he understood his girl was happy. That was enough. Day 39 brought an invitation. John didn't ask for a town gathering at the courthouse steps. The mayor organized it. The same mayor who'd been silent for 36 days. 200 people showed up. John stood in the back with Emily and Max, uncomfortable with attention, wanting to leave. The mayor took the microphone, feedback squealing. We owe John Carter and Max an apology. His voice carried across the square. We failed them. We chose silence over courage. We chose comfort over what was right. Today, we choose differently. Speakers took turns. Dolores. John taught us that kindness doesn't need permission, that one person standing alone can change everything. Hal. From his wheelchair. He reminded us that veterans four-legged or two deserve respect. That service doesn't end when you take off the uniform. Amanda, the teacher. He showed our children what integrity looks like, what it means to stand for something even when it costs you everything. They called John forward. He hesitated. Emily pushed him gently. He took the microphone like it might bite. I didn't do this for recognition. His voice was rough, unused to public speaking. I did it because it was right, and because Max, he never gave up on me. His hand found Max's head. When I came back broken from overseas, he was there. When I thought I had nothing to offer the world, he reminded me I could still be a father, that I could still matter. He looked down at Max's medal around his neck, eyes cloudy but content. So if there's a hero here, it's not me. It's him. It always was. The square erupted in applause. Standing ovation. John didn't know what to do with it. Just stood there, overwhelmed, while Max's tail wagged at all the noise and energy. They walked through the crowd afterward. People reached out, not demanding, just touching his shoulder, nodding, saying thank you. For what? John wasn't entirely sure, but he accepted it. Day 42 brought one last gift. The veterinary oncology clinic in Austin was nothing like Doc Stevens' small-town practice. Modern, clean, expensive-looking equipment gleaming under fluorescent lights. Dr. Miranda Okoye was 40-something, Nigerian accent softened by 20 years in Texas. eyes that had seen too many animals die but still believed in fighting. She examined Max thoroughly. Blood work, CT scans, X-rays, the full diagnostic arsenal. John and Emily waited in a room decorated with photos of dogs, healthy dogs, playing dogs, dogs that had survived. Hope and heartbreak in equal measure. When Dr. Okoye returned, John read her face first. Doctors learned to control their expressions, but eyes always told the truth. "The cancer has spread," she said gently. "Lungs, liver, lymph nodes. It's aggressive stage 4. John's heart dropped into his stomach. But that single word changed everything. "There's a new treatment, immunotherapy for dogs. It's experimental. FDA approved for veterinary trials. We've seen promising results in cases like Max's." She pulled up scans on her computer, showed them charts and survival curves. "It won't cure him. The cancer's too advanced for that. But it could slow the progression. Give him time. Months. Maybe a year. Quality time." "How much?" John asked automatically. "Governor Richards has already authorized payment. Full treatment protocol. All of it." Emily grabbed John's hand. "Dad." Dr. Okoye's expression grew serious. "It's not without risk. The treatment itself can be hard on older dogs, and there are no guarantees. But if you want to try—" John looked at Max. Max looked back, still trusting, still waiting. "What do you think, buddy? You got more fight in you?" Max's tail wagged. "Decision made." "We'll do it," John said. Dr. Okoye smiled. "Good. We start Monday. You'll need to bring him in 3 times a week initially. It's going to be a journey." "We've come this far," Emily said, voice fierce. "We're not stopping now." They left the clinic at sunset, October sky painted in oranges and purples. Max walked to the car slowly, but walked no carrying needed today. John helped him into the back seat. Max settled with a sigh. They drove home with windows down, Max's face in the wind, ears flapping, eyes half closed in contentment. For the first time in 42 days, John felt something foreign: peace. Not happiness, not quite yet, but peace. They pulled into the driveway as twilight deepened to night. A figure sat on their porch steps, waiting. Plow 1. 600 words. The figure on the porch stood as they approached Marcus Webb, messenger bag slung over his shoulder, something tucked under his arm. "Didn't mean to startle you," he said. "Wanted to drop this off personally." He handed John a newspaper, the Austin Chronicle, but national edition, front page, above the fold. "Small town vigil leads to justice for war hero dog." The photo was the one from the governor's visit, Max with his medal, John's hand on his head, Emily beaming beside them. "It went national," Webb said. "I've had calls from 3 production companies. They want to make a movie." John laughed, actually laughed. "About an old man and an old dog standing on a corner. About dignity. About not giving up when the world tells you to." Webb smiled. "I told them they'd have to ask you first." John looked at the photo. His family. Together. Whole. "Tell them no. This isn't entertainment. It's just life." Webb nodded, understanding, respecting it. After he left, John carried Max inside, settled him on his bed with fresh water and the good pain medication Dr. Okoye had prescribed. Max sighed deep, content, rested his head on his paws. His job wasn't done. Not yet. 6 months later, April. Morning routines had changed, but not disappeared. John still woke at 5, made coffee, good coffee now, the kind that didn't taste like regret. The kitchen was warmer. The community fundraiser had paid for new heating. Emily's college fund jar sat on the counter, heavier each week as people still dropped coins and bills by the porch. The truck ran smoothly. Transmission fixed by Ed Harrison. The mechanic who'd refused payment with a gruff, "Just returning a favor you didn't know I owed." John cooked scrambled eggs with extra cheese, Emily set the table without being asked. Max waited in his new orthopedic bed, top-of-the-line memory foam that cradled his arthritic joints like a cloud. The immunotherapy had worked better than anyone hoped. Not a cure, cancer didn't grant miracles, but time. Precious, golden time. Max's fur had grown back silver gray instead of brown, making him look distinguished rather than old. The scars were there, would always be there. But they told a story now instead of shame. They ate breakfast together, the three of them, family. John wrapped Max's medications in cheese. Max took them patiently, then followed them to the porch. The rocking chair creaked as John sat. Emily curled up on the steps with a book. Max settled beside her, head on her lap, sighing contentment. No more courthouse vigils, just peace. Marcus Webb stopped by occasionally, always bringing flowers for the famous Max. Today he brought daisies. Wanted to check in, see how you're all doing. We're good, John said simply, and meant it. The word felt foreign in his mouth, good but true nonetheless. Webb stayed for coffee, told them the sheriff had been formally indicted. Cody Brennan faced 5 years. The town council had voted in new leadership. You changed things, Webb said before leaving. People don't forget that. After he drove away, Max made a sound half whimper, half bark. The "I need to go outside" sound. John helped him down the steps, hand under his chest, supporting weight that had dwindled despite the good food and better care. They walked to the old oak tree in the backyard. Max did his business with the dignity of a dog who'd never forgotten his training. Then he stood in the April sunshine, face tilted toward warmth, eyes half closed, just being, just breathing. John's hand found his head, rubbed behind the ears the way Max loved. Good boy, he whispered. Good boy. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning. Dr. Okoye's voice was gentle. John, the latest scans show the cancer's progressing again. Faster now. The immunotherapy has done everything it can. John had known, had seen it in the way Max struggled to stand, the way food held less interest, the way sleep claimed more hours each day. How long? Days. Maybe a week. I'm sorry. He wasn't surprised, just sad. That evening, John carried Max outside to his favorite spot under the oak tree. Spring had painted Texas in bluebonnets, wild, blue, beautiful, the state flower blooming like hope. Emily lay in the grass beside Max, arms around his neck. I love you, Max, she whispered, 12 years old now, and understanding what forever meant. Forever and ever. Max's tail moved. Barely. But moved. John sat on Max's other side, hand on the ribcage that rose and fell with increasing difficulty. Each breath a battle won, each exhale a small surrender. You did good, buddy. John's voice cracked. You did so good. You saved so many people. You saved me. Max's eyes found his, cloudy, tired, but still trusting. Dr. Okoye had come to the house. Understanding that some goodbyes needed to happen at home, she knelt beside them, prepared the injection with practiced gentleness. He won't feel pain, she said softly. Just peace. Just sleep. Can you give us a minute? John asked. She nodded, stepped away. John lowered his forehead to Max's. Thank you for choosing me, for staying when I was broken, for teaching Emily what loyalty looks like, for reminding me that even when the world is hard, goodness still exists. Emily's tears soaked into Max's fur. You're the best dog ever, the best friend. I'll never forget you. Max sighed. Not pain, not fear, just contentment. He'd done his job, protected his people, loved them, been loved in return. That was enough. Dr. Okoye administered the injection. Max's breathing slowed, slower, slower. His eyes found John's one last time, a look that said, "Thank you for everything." John's voice was steady, even as tears fell. "Thank you, Max, for saving me." One last breath, then stillness. Max was gone. John didn't wail, didn't shout, just lowered his head to Max's and let the grief come quiet. Deep, ocean vast. Emily cried against his shoulder. They stayed under the oak tree as the sun set, saying goodbye, taking as long as they needed, saying farewell to a hero, a protector, a friend. 1 year later. The memorial statue stood in the town square where John had kept his vigil. Bronze, life-sized, a German shepherd sitting at attention, alert and proud. The plaque read, Max K9 4721 Hero, Protector, Friend. He taught us dignity is not given, it is lived. The dedication ceremony drew 300 people. Governor Richards attended, placing a wreath at the statue's base. Lieutenant Hayes came, along with Marcus Webb and a dozen veterans from the VFW hall. John stood with Emily, 13 now, taller, braver, carrying herself with quiet confidence she'd learned from watching her father stand. They called him to speak. He approached the microphone, still uncomfortable with attention but no longer afraid of it. Max didn't ask to be a hero. He just loved his people and protected them. John's voice carried across the square. That's all any of us can do. Love fiercely, stand firm, and never, ever give up. He looked at the statue, frozen in bronze but alive in memory. Thank you, Max, for teaching me how. Afterward, Emily placed fresh bluebonnets at the statue's feet, whispered something only she and Max would ever know. They walked home together, past the courthouse where it had all begun, past the park where Max had played, up the familiar porch steps. A young dog waited there, 2 years old. German Shepherd mix, rescued from the shelter 3 months ago. Bright eyes, eager tail. Her name was Hope. She bounded toward them, all puppy energy and uncontainable joy. John smiled the kind of smile that reached his eyes now, the kind he thought he'd forgotten how to make. Life continued, different, but continuing. Inside, on the mantel, Max's medal rested beside a photo of the three of them on the porch. Max between John and Emily, all of them smiling, captured forever in that moment before goodbye, before loss, when they were whole. John picked up the photo, traced Max's face with his thumb. "We're okay, buddy," he whispered. "Just like you taught us. We're okay." Hope barked, insistent, demanding attention. Emily laughed, threw a tennis ball. The young dog ran, grabbed it, brought it back. Life. Continuing. From the porch, John watched his daughter play with their new companion. The sun set gold and orange, painting everything in warmth, and somewhere in memory, in love. In the echo of paws that once walked these floors, Max watched too, still protecting, still loving, still there, because love doesn't end when breath does. It echoes, and in that echo, we find forever. Mullen, 400 words. Max lived 2 more years after that day at the courthouse. Every morning, he and John sat on the porch. Every morning, the sun rose, and when Max finally closed his eyes for the last time, he did so knowing he had been loved, completely, unconditionally. That is the measure of a life well lived, for a dog or a man. The end. The truth we almost missed. Beneath the surface of John's quiet vigil lay a darker truth, one that should shake us all. Max wasn't just a dog who got bullied. He was a decorated war hero, erased by a system that forgot him the moment he was no longer useful. A living legend reduced to a nameless companion in a forgotten corner of Texas. His service buried under fur, his sacrifice invisible until cruelty exposed what honor should have celebrated. The real secret wasn't the tattoo. It was how easily we as a society discard those who've served us. How quickly hero becomes history becomes invisible. How a dog who saved 47 lives could be attacked in broad daylight while a town looked away. And how long it took for anyone to care. John stood for 36 days before the system listened. 36 days of being called weird, dramatic, obsessed. 36 days while his truck was vandalized, his daughter followed, his dog dying. 36 days that asked one question over and over: is doing the right thing worth losing everything? The uncomfortable mirror. Here's what haunts me about this story. Most of us would have been in that crowd. Not the bullies we'd like to think were better than that, but the people walking past John's vigil, eyes down, steps quick, thinking, it's just a dog, it's not my problem, he should just let it go. We would have been Dolores on day one, seeing the injustice, feeling bad, but not crossing the street until day 8 when it was safer. We would have been the lawyer who said, I want to help, but I have a daughter in college. We would have been the neighbors peeking through curtains but never stepping outside, because standing with John meant standing against the sheriff, against power, against the comfortable silence that lets corruption thrive. And comfort is seductive. Silence is easy. Walking past takes zero courage. The question that matters. So here's what I need to ask you, and I need you to answer honestly. If you saw John standing there, day after day, with a sick dog and a fading sign, would you have stopped? Would you have been brave enough on day 3, when stopping meant becoming a target? Would you have brought coffee on day 12, when your neighbors were calling him crazy? Would you have left flowers on day 23, knowing Sheriff Brennan might see? Or would you have done what most of us do, waited until day 37? When the governor arrived and suddenly it was safe to care? Because here's the brutal truth. Evil doesn't win because bad people are strong. It wins because good people wait for permission to be brave. John didn't wait. He stood when standing cost him everything. He fought when fighting meant losing. He refused to be silent when silence would have been so much easier. And the only reason Max's story ended in justice instead of a forgotten grave is because one broken man decided that dignity mattered more than comfort. What this story really asks of us. This isn't just about a dog. It's about every time we see injustice and look away because getting involved is inconvenient. It's about every veteran we thank for their service but ignore when they're struggling. It's about every time we choose our comfort over someone else's dignity. It's about the Maxes in our own communities, the forgotten heroes, the discarded servants, the people and animals who gave everything and got nothing back. And it's asking, what would you do? Not in theory, not in a story where the ending is already written, but tomorrow, in real life, when standing up means standing alone, when doing the right thing costs you friends, money, safety, peace, when the sheriff is powerful and you are small, when everyone else is walking past. Would you stop? Would you be the Dolores who crosses the street on day 8, or would you be brave enough to cross on day 1? The call. If this story moved you, ask yourself why. Maybe it's because you see yourself in John, someone who's been knocked down and forgotten, but keeps getting up. Maybe it's because you see yourself in Max, loyal, trusting, worthy of better than you've received. Or maybe, and this is the hardest one, you see yourself in the crowd that walked past for 35 days. There's no shame in that recognition. The shame is only in doing nothing with it. Because there's a John in your town right now, a Max who needs someone to care, an injustice happening in broad daylight while everyone pretends not to see. And you have a choice. Keep walking, eyes down, comfortable in your silence, or stop. Look, stand, even when it costs you, even when you're alone, even when the ending isn't guaranteed. John didn't know how his story would end when he picked up that cardboard sign on day 1. He just knew that silence was no longer an option. So I'm asking you, when you close this story and go back to your life, what will you do differently? Who will you stop for? What injustice will you refuse to ignore? What's your courthouse vigil? And when the moment comes, because it will come, will you have the courage to stand, or will you wait for someone else to be brave first? The world is full of Maxes waiting for someone to see them. The question is, will you be the one who stops walking? Share this story if you believe dignity is worth fighting for. Tag someone who taught you what courage looks like. And most importantly, Be the person who crosses the street on day one, because the world doesn't need more people who care when it's safe. It needs more people like John who care when it costs everything. 150 words.